Working. All righty. We are live. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning,
How
everyone.
Coach? Mm. How you doing this morning, Coach?
Good. I'm just hearing myself, so I need to mute myself somewhere.
Okay.
Okay, I think that's it. I'm good. How are you?
Okay.
Feel like
Good
it's
morning.
the end of the school year.
Almost. So Northeast. You're Midwest, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm Northeast. Listen, that could be a whole conversation for another day. I don't think Ohio is Midwest. I don't quite. I don't know. I just don't think it fits into the mid. Like we're not west. Like we're
Mhm.
west of the East Coast, but we're not like in the middle or west of the United States. I don't know. I have a lot of
Got it.
thoughts about that.
Okay. Fair enough. Well, I am just more Northeast than you then.
Yeah, I mean, I
Oh,
think I'm
there's our sound. Okay, let me turn it down. So I'm more Northeast than you then. I'll say that. So I'm up in Massachusetts. So,
okay. Yeah.
all right. Fair enough. And so hey, I'm so excited. Okay, so this is episode.
4. I know, crazy.
That's all right. Yeah, I can't believe it. All right, and it just
Slowly but surely getting it together, y'all. Eventually, by episode 10, maybe we'll have some show notes. We'll have a little intro video. We'll start making things real official. We just, we're like, if we are gonna wait for it to be perfect, we're never gonna do it. So here we are.
so here we are. That'll be. We'll set that goal. We'll set our goal for show 10 to have by show 10 we will have show notes and an intro video.
I'm getting my tea together. Don't mind me. I gotta put some honey in it.
Don't even worry about it. Welcome to Sherann Show Live. Something.
Exactly. We're gonna have a little catchy tune or something.
That's it. That's it. Okay, so I don't know if you guys know the story behind this Lululemon cup, but I think I told it on our last live. And so listen, so this is a travel mug. It is not mine. But my one of my husband's longtime like best friends gave it to me to give to our daughter. And so shout out to Style Synchronicity. But she's like, oh no, she'll love it because it's pink. Listen, and so she lost the lid to my coffee mug, which is a red Starbucks mug. Okay. And it's my travel mug. I take it, it fits in the car cup holder. This does not because it's too wide. And so she uses the kitchen stuff way too often in her play kitchen. So we're always scrambling, sometimes looking for the measuring spoon. So the lid to my coffee cup went missing. So I was like, well, guess what, sis? This is going to be mine until we find it. No, that is my pink mug. What are you doing? Use your red mug. And I was like, ma'am. So when we talk about kids getting overstimulated in behavior, my 3-year-old used her voice that day to let me know. And now this is either the second or third time that I have opted in because I still cannot find my lid. So I really do have to go through her toy kitchen stuff to really
figure out where it is. You'll probably find everything in there. Anything that you've lost in the last 2 months is going to be something in that kid's playroom.
Yes. So toddler life. That is it. So that's where we are. So I do. So shout out to you have tea. I've got a little coffee. And we are good to go. I'm so excited. So we have some really good questions also that were given to us.
Yes.
That were sent in. And I know we generated a few questions that.
So to give everyone a recap. So today what we wanted to do was put feelers out there and have people put any questions they had, either send it to us in DMs or through social media or in text messages or anything else. So today is going to be kind of Q&A style. So we have those questions written down and we'll probably go back and forth and bounce that off to each other. And then we're super excited for episode 5. We're going to have another guest. So we are super excited to bring someone else into our conversation, to add to our conversation and to have another person to kiki with. So it'll be a good time.
Let's do it. My niece says kiki is for old people, for aunties. Hence, I'm her auntie. So she's
an auntie status, full blown. So
Like,
I will
I own that.
relish in that.
1,000%. She's we yap. TT, we yap.
Exactly.
I was like, okay, girl. Then I will go yap. She's like, no, you could kiki. I was like, all right. Thanks, babe.
Exactly. So going with the parent thing, I think I'll go into a question real quick, seeing both of us, toddler parents. Kind of a two-part question of like, why is it so much harder to stay consistent at home than anywhere else? When it comes to either behavior support or social emotional support. And then the second part of this question that someone sent in was, how do you handle behavior or unwanted behavior in public without feeling judged? Very great questions.
Very good questions. So I'm going to answer from two spaces. And so, as an awesome mom, you're not always in control of the behaviors you're going to get. And so we work really hard with our BCBA, we work really hard with our speech therapists and OT to, minimize or reduce some of the sensory overload for our little one and help them navigate situations or social situations that may, tip them over the edge, right? They're done masking for the day. Like, I've had enough. And the other part to that is just being in sync. If particularly if both me and my husband are together, right? We're doubling down on the parenting. It can be easier because usually one of us can, take him, move him around, support him, and give him the space that he needs. But when that's not the case, sometimes you just got to let them melt down and just give them the space that they need to recognize, like, I am safe, I'm loved, and I can overcome this. It might take a few minutes, it might get a few stares, but the one thing someone told me is that if they're a parent, they've been through it. So the stares are, we think they're staring at us, but most times it was a parent that was like, most folks are just empathizing because they've been there. And I just try to keep that mindset. And I was getting some of the other stares like, ooh, look at that kid. And I'm like, and I'm being the best mom I can be in that moment and keeping myself together. So it could become overwhelming.
Yeah.
I'm going to lose my cool or I'm going to be in tears, So how do we manage in those moments? And so when we're at home, we have, things set up. He has a blanket. He's got his sensory stuff that he enjoys. We set a timer. He can go crash, what the kids say, crash out, can go crash out in his room if he needs to. He knows what's safe, but in public, we don't know. And so we do, stop. We do all of that. And that doesn't always work. Sometimes they just have to explore those feelings and explore them in the environment that they're in so they know how to learn from that so they can do better or just be more what we call socially appropriate the next time.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And that's a good point. I think for me, when I worked at, your example brought me back to when I worked at a residential facility with autistic individuals. And we were banned from a local Heinen's due to some destructive behavior one of our kiddos engaged in. But I always felt like we were judged. And I think part of me was always on a defense at first. I was like, what are you staring at? What you want? Like ready to like almost fight for my kids, which I realized also wasn't an appropriate response either. I think what I started doing that helped is telling people what I needed. Like, if you're going to stare, I need your help. Like, are you staring? Like, would you like to help me? This is what I need. And I would find, even if it's random things, like, go get me a piece of paper and a pencil. Like, can you get me a glass of water? Like, just finding things. Because sometimes I think, to your point, some people are empathetic, especially when it comes just to kids, right? My 5-year-old, I see another mom, she like, yeah, I get it. Like, I have that eye contact sometimes too. Like, I get it, not judging, been there, done that. But sometimes I think some people have no idea what's going on. So part of the staring is because it's unknown and they don't know. So I kind of find like, let me snap you back into it. If you're going to stare, I need you to be useful. So then either a lot of people are either like, okay, yes, I'll help you. Or they're like, okay, no, my bad. And then they leave. But sometimes it's that, what am I looking at? And they're curious, but not understanding that this isn't helping me. This isn't helping the kid. Like, I either am going to give you something that's going to help, or I'm going to ask you to step
aside. Yeah, definitely.
And then the question, I think, why is it so much harder to stay consistent at home? It's like our kids, right? Home is our safe space. Even as adults, home is our safe space. So I think sometimes, just like us with kids, if we work all day, we have to keep it together, right? We have to keep a certain decorum. We have to keep a certain, like, you're a principal, you're a consultant. I have to keep a certain decorum all day. And like emotional state all day. And then when I get home, same thing as kids do when they get home from school, is kind of like I'm home, I'm in my safe space, I can take my bra off, I can take, like some layers off of just emotions and feelings. So then it is harder to stay consistent, because it's kind of like, you know what? I said you needed to do X, but if you want to watch an extra 20 minutes of TV, because I need an extra 20 minutes to just chill and relax too. So I think just sometimes the expectations might be the same, but how you're implementing them also vary based on your mood as well, and what you've been through that day, and how overstimulated you are when you get home. So
yeah, that's a big one.
yeah.
Let's take that for 1 second. And you mentioned coming home. I 1000% co-sign on taking the bra off. And as a parent, how do you reset from that? So we talked about the kids' behavior. We talked about it being overstimulating. Like, what are some of the things that you do to kind of just get yourself restored so you can just go back in for another day?
Yeah. I think just putting my phone down, I think, is a big one. I last week got in the habit of Instagram, something social media got me with some game, one of those like farm games where you do stuff. And I was doing the most. So putting my phone down, because then it's like, I'm not answering messages. I'm not trying to, do emails. I'm not trying to like send stuff on social media that I was supposed to be sending. I'm just spending time and doing things that I enjoy, whether that is going outside with my kid, going on a movie night with my, or movie day. Sometimes we do date days when our little one's at camp. I'm reading a book. Now that the weather is finally, hopefully, who knows, it's Ohio turned around, like taking walks. So just finding little ways to like disengage from the work stuff. And then if it's an at-home thing where I'm overstimulated and everyone's overstimulating me, I think I have been better at communicating that. Like, my husband already knows me and guess my antics. He kind of knows my triggers and can recognize them well. But I think that's harder for a 5-year-old. So I think sometimes in the moments, voicing that instead of me getting frustrated and just walking away, because he quite doesn't understand it. And he's like, why is mommy walking away from me? If I'm dysregulated and you're just walking away from me. So me having those conversations of like, I understand you're upset. I can't help you right now, or like mommy needs a quick break. Like, I'm getting overstimulated and I can't help you fully if like I'm dysregulated myself. So mommy needs 5 minutes of time or something. So just keeping those lines of communications open.
Yeah, that is hard, I think. So I know that when you think about behavior, particularly for your own children, you can talk a little bit about like when you need to disconnect to feel sane and restored, but they're actually looking for the connection that will help regulate. Can you talk a little bit about that and what connection, that idea of what connection looks like, feels like, and then like how do we get past that and build from there? Like, so I think more my question about how do we not do any harm when we need to take a break?
Yeah. Sometimes I know Christopher, when he's upset, he wants like that physical touch. Like, he wants to hug and just chill. So sometimes I have honored him that, but have told him, like, I can't honor any other request right now. Like, we can sit here quietly while we're hugging each other, while we're just sitting each other's space, while we're just doing. So I have some time to get my thoughts together. And that's honestly a little relaxing to me to cuddle as well. But then he also is feeling emotionally safe. So I
Yeah.
really think it's figuring out how and what does make your kiddo feel safe. Like, what does that look like for them in particular? Like I said, my kiddo is as a love bug. He just wants to love on you, and that's what's going to make him feel better.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's also communicating with him because he'll be crying. And yesterday he was tired, so like I already knew it, but it was still overstimulating. Everything was a cry, everything was a whine. So I kind of told him, Christopher, like, I really want to sit here and cuddle, and you have every right to be upset. However, you continuing to scream and cry is is really getting me frustrated, and I want to
Mhm.
hug you, but I also don't want to hug you when you're screaming and crying in my face. So we
Yeah.
have to like find a balance. So then he was able to calm down a little bit and kind of told me, Mommy, but I'm just upset. I said, and it's okay for you to feel upset, and it's even okay for you to cry. Just
Mhm.
the yelling and the whining and the 50 million mommies within a second, it's hard for me to process right now. Like, I can't do it. So if we're gonna sit in here and hug, you can be sad, you can even cry a little bit. We need some time before whatever it is that he wanted yesterday, before we figure out that situation and solve that problem. Because I can't solve that problem when I'm really getting frustrated and you're upset at the same time. It's not going to help either of us. So I think it's some of that communication. When the kiddos are a little younger, it's a little harder because they may not have
Mhm.
that communication. So sometimes it's that de-escalation. That takes us into a whole nother topic. But I feel like a lot of times we don't want to de-escalate.
Mhm.
Hey, Ashley. A lot of times we don't want to de-escalate because we don't want to give in, right? Because it's like, well, I'm not going to give in, and I said you're going to do this, so I'm just gonna like, you gonna do you until you do X what I asked you to do. But really looking at what does de-escalation look like. If I'm trying to de-escalate in the moment, and my kiddo, most kiddos, their regulation cycle is off anyway, what can I do right now in the moment to dysregulate? So that's where I felt like yesterday I was like, yo, I told you X, I want to walk away, but he was still escalated. So what can I do right now in the moment to de-escalate you, to also give me some peace? That's giving a hug. So if that means we are hugging it out right now for the next 5 minutes, that doesn't mean whatever thing that I asked you to do or the expectation goes away. It just means right now in the moment, I am choosing to provide something to de-escalate so
Mhm.
we can get back into whatever it is, or a modified expectation.
Mhm.
But sometimes we don't de-escalate fast enough. I see this in like my field of work too, because we're like, well, if we give in, then we're reinforcing behavior. Like, yes, but also if we're in the middle of the grocery store and we're, throwing things out the aisle, at that point in time, my plan kind of goes out the window, and I need to figure out how can I de-escalate you right now in this moment so you're safe, so that you feel secure, and like we can leave.
Yeah.
Whatever it is that we need to do.
I hear that. Shout out to Nick asked about having who mentioned deeper conversations about regulation. So that's where my framing came from. So shout out to Nitsa Jimenez on LinkedIn for asking, or she left a comment on our post for our live this week. So thank you for that and helping us think about what regulation looks like.
Yeah.
And Ashley in the comments says, I tell my kids the same thing. It's okay to cry, not to scream. Yeah, like screaming is for emergencies. Let's be honest. Like you can cry, you can have your feelings, you can do all of the things, but take it down. Take it down. We have a question from from a high school counselor, and so Stacy Empowers asked a couple of questions, and so I'm going to read them all, and we're just going to summarize. um, okay, she says, "What do you think people misunderstand most about apathetic students? How do you personally respond when a student keeps rejecting help? Have you ever realized a student labeled lazy was actually struggling emotionally? And then what's the hardest part about trying to motivate a student who seems checked out?"
All right, let's go to
What? Come on, Big Nashville.
Yeah. Yeah. Say the first question again.
Yeah. So the first question was, what do you think people misunderstand most about apathetic students?
So for those of you who don't know, I'm just, honest. Apathetic is when like you don't show any interest or like feeling or concern, or that's what it feels like, that you're not showing any interest, feelings, or concerns. My first thing goes to reinforcement of the environment, right? Like if that is the environment that you are brought up in, right? To show no feelings, to show no concerns, that is part of weakness, right? Any of those kinds of things. So I think sometimes that misunderstanding, maybe they do care, they have just learned through their environment or even experiences, right? That when I show feelings, X has happened and I don't like that. So I learned to like shut that off. Some kids, who knows, like maybe if they're older in high school, they also have, there's so many kiddos out there that have dealt more with their 10 years of life than I have in all my almost 40. So you also don't know what they have experienced, and that has led them to that. Maybe they don't feel safe. I think that is another big thing that I think about. Do they feel comfortable and safe in your environment and with you as a person, to show that emotion and that interest? Like, is your class interesting? Sometimes some kiddos, I have gotten that from staff of like, this kiddo just shows no interest or whatever. And then I walk up in their classroom and I'm like, yeah, I mean, you're like, your class is boring. I don't know what to tell you. I almost fell asleep in your class. So like,
That's
they might, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
No, I think apathy is one of the hardest behaviors to address because you need to, one, have a relationship with a student to even open the door to having conversations, and there has to be trust. And so those two things are huge when you're trying to engage someone and bring them back from that,
Yeah.
right, that void. So I know I 1,000% agree, and thank you for providing that definition to make sure that we were having the same conversation. So yeah. So how do you personally respond when a student keeps rejecting help?
Two things before we go on to that question. I also think we need to be mindful of how we're defining apathetic as an unwanted behavior. So I think that's another piece to go to it, because to me, a teacher coming to me and saying a kiddo is really apathetic, that is very subjective to me. What does that look like? Because that's almost like a feeling, right? Like, can I measure what it is for a kiddo to show no feelings, right? Like, how do you measure that? How do you observe that? Is that how many times a day that they smile? But if they don't smile, does that really mean they're being apathetic, right? So I think that is something that we really need to think about when we're doing that. Is what is the definition? What does that look like? Because just to say like, that's a behavior, this kiddo is apathetic and I need some help. Like what are you actually? So I think adding that nugget in. So now, sorry, repeat the question.
Oh, that's actually super helpful for the framing, because because I think when I think about it, I know you have the smaller age lens more often than not, and I have the big kids. So for me, if I got that question from a teacher, I'm thinking like full disengagement, head down, hoodie up, earphones on, or not coming at all, right? And then when you ask them what's up, if you can even get through to them, get them to have a conversation with you, it's like, it's whatever. I'm not really interested. Why are you talking to me? Like, and so it's really like almost like also like it's giving, I don't want to say flat affect because that looks very different. Flat responses. I don't want to say affect, but very just disengaged responses that don't make any connection to the work or the task or the ask that the student should be doing in that moment. And so for big kids, I know when I think about apathy, or older students, when I think about apathy, oftentimes they do voice it in a way where it's like, why are you even talking to me? I don't want to do this.
Yeah. And then I also would then challenge, like, is this a pattern? Is this something that recently happened? Was this something like, if this has been happening since the beginning of the year and we're just now addressing to it, then to me, that is kind of like, well, then, yeah, like, what does your rapport look like? What does your relationship look like? What are the antecedents in your classroom that are helping this kiddo be successful? And then also sometimes noting like some people, some kiddos, some adults just have that personality. They're just not, so maybe it doesn't meet your expectations or, what the norm is, but maybe they're engaged in different ways that you're just not used to, or that you're not picking up on because that's not the normal way, or that's not what I want, but they are actually engaging and have been trying to engage, but because you miss their engagement cues, they're like, well, they're not paying attention to me anyway, so I'm just not going to do anything at all.
And that's where the trust in the relationships and just, really having an understanding for your student community and their identities comes into play. Yeah. You want the second question?
Yes, because I forgot it already.
How do you personally respond when a student keeps rejecting help?
Building a relationship. Building rapport for me would be the big one. And really understanding why they're rejecting help. I think now my behavior brain is going, is it like all help? Is it certain help? How am I offering that help? What does that help look like? So I think trying to figure out, is it like all modalities of help? Is it a specific way? Is it for a specific thing? So I think it's really building that relationship. Sometimes like it could just be me. Maybe they just don't mess with me and they don't want my help. So like, can I go get Sherann? Right? Can I go get Principal Sherann? Are you going to accept help from her, right? Or from somebody else? So I think it's like that rapport, getting to know the kiddo first, so that you have more context behind what's going on.
Yeah. So the trusted adult part comes in for me here. So when a student keeps rejecting help, are you the trusted adult, to go back to what you're saying? And if you are not, go find one. There's somebody in this young person's life that they lean into, that they want to engage with. And if it's not you, that's okay. If you can share the story.
It's okay. I think we forget that.
It doesn't have to always be us, but if you have the skills to coach your colleague and be like, hey, this is what I know about the kid. Here's some strategies. They trust you. Let's bring them in the fold together. You know what I mean? Like, talk to your colleague. Like if I'm the principal or the counselor in a building and they love the BCBA and, we need this behavior to shift, or we need something to change so this kid can better engage, I'm going to be like, hey, coach, here's what's going on. Here's the concern that was brought to me. Here's what I know are some strategies to help bring the student in the fold. And this is the goal. Take it away. And how can I help you if, you hit a brick wall, or if it's beyond the scope of the work that you're able to do right now? But, we're all invested in this young person. So how do I help? I don't have to be me. It's that savior complex, right? Like,
yep. Like what I know, and it's my kid and my classroom, or it's my school. Like sometimes some kiddos just don't mess with you, and like, it is what it is. Right.
And it's funny because oftentimes we don't mess with kids either, but we're such good actors, right? No, the kids should not know you don't like them. They know, but they
Exactly.
should know.
Yeah.
You know, like if
Yeah.
I don't mess with a kid because they just rub me the wrong way.
Yeah.
I'm an actress.
Oh yeah.
I'm in theater with that kid.
Oh
I
yeah.
like they are a human first. They're a young person who is developing skills, social skills, emotional skills, and I got to work with them. And
Yep.
so, and they deserve the best part of me, even if we don't vibe personalities.
Yeah.
And I can
And
tell you, no kids would know
kids
if I
don't kids do not care.
they don't, and they will tell you. So I was like, cool, we don't have to get along, but we both have a job to do. You got to be a student, I got to be a principal. So what we're gonna do? You know what I mean? At the end of the day, let's be, respectful towards one another and get this job done. We don't have to vibe totally. Like
Exactly.
every teacher, and I surely can't like every student, but I respect you.
Mm-hmm.
And you can have that conversation from 6 to 16. You know what I mean? Like you can have that conversation. You can have it with a young, a tiny tot all the way up to a young adult. They can hear you, and they read your body language.
Yeah.
All right, we got 2 more questions. Do you want me to sum them together, or do you want to go from the list that you received?
Let me go back to my list. This was a good one, so I think kind of you as a counselor too.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a 2-part question. Are we actually teaching kids to regulate in schools or just teaching them to behave? And then the second part of that was, what does real emotional support look like? Not just use your words, right? I think we hear that a lot. Use your words is like the default. So the first question, are we actually teaching kids to regulate in the classroom environment or just teaching them to behave?
Okay. Do not shoot the messenger. For a very long time, folks like us in student support were guests in the education system. So while we understand human behavior and that's the focus of our work to support students, that's not necessarily the function of education, right? It's the teaching and learning, it's around the academics and instruction. So when that happens, I think oftentimes we feel a disconnect. Teachers just want to teach, right? You hear that a lot from folks. But they can't teach through the noise, through the behaviors, through the inconsistent attendance. It makes it difficult for them, and so that's when we see this idea of social emotional learning being tied into curriculum, right? And so it's not just math, but math and executive function. It's not just social studies; it's social studies and SEL. Like how can we bridge learning as a whole? Because when you think about the whole child, you're learning and developing all at the same time. It can't just be academics, academics, academics. And I think for a long time, schools, just the way they were designed, weren't designed to do that. And we have come a long way over the last 20 years. I'll be honest, in the way that we understand helping students regulate behaviors, their emotions, and teaching students how to learn and be good learners. You would think that would be natural, but that's just not the design.
Yep.
And so from where I sit, it's necessary, it's required. And I think that even down to the teacher prep programs need to revisit this idea of human development, adolescent development, and looking at SEL curriculum early on, like it should be bridged into your teaching and instruction. I think that's what makes really good teachers.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. And I do think sometimes we are just looking more for compliance, right? Like a lot of times when I know in my case, if I'm being asked to support, it's like, I just need this kiddo to behave so he can do X, right? So I can get through my lessons and not understanding that part of me coming in to help support is like, we got to teach this kid how to regulate their emotions, and you're part of that teaching process. So I think a very good point that you made earlier is like, it's not just I teach history and you come in and teach self-regulation, because I'm not in this classroom with this kiddo every single day. So part of that teaching comes like from the classroom teacher and from the staff, and that if we want kiddos to quote unquote just behave, we actually have to teach those regulation skills first, that there's a skill deficit that isn't happening, that needs to be happening on a consistent basis.
Yeah, I hear that. I think so. There was a second part to your question.
Yes, hold on, let me go back to it. What does
Sorry,
real emotional support?
what is real emotion? Okay, that's a really good question. Stacy, I see your comment. Yes, you text me. Yes, I'll respond. And specifically about father son. Okay, father son and ASD. We didn't have to invite a dad or a male educator on here to have this conversation. I think I know I mentioned being an autism mom before. And so I also recognize that that's a specific lens when you have a child who might be on the spectrum or a child with any kind of learning need, right? Like it looks different for all of us, not just as educators in those spaces, but also as parents dealing with behavior. So, Stacey, we will happily talk about this and come up with a solution to have this conversation on a behavior talk in the very near future. Thank you for this. And I will watch it and I will share it with Scho too, so we can see it together. Ask the question again, because I got distracted.
No, that's okay. What does real emotional support look like?
Real. So real, which means there's an opposite to fake, right? And so I don't know what that means. I think it's different for every single person. And this goes back to the relationship, the trust, right? And the authenticity that goes into it. You said it. You just said it. Like kids know when you're being fake.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think real means that you're coming at it as your whole self, your true self, and you're honoring the other person's humanity in the engagement, in the conversation, in the way that you're working with them. Because my 3-year-old knows when you're BSing her, to be honest. I'm like, okay, baby, let's just, she'd be like, no, you're not going to trick me. I'm not going to do that, Umi. Okay, but we are.
No.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So we are going to go get in the bathtub. Do you want to skip to the bathtub or do you want to run, baby, run to the bathtub? Do you know what I mean? Like we have to use skills at all times, again, at home and in the school building. So my apathetic teenager, for example, cool, but you're not just going to sit in this hallway. So there's learning happening in your classroom, or we can go to the counselor's office, or we can take a walk. Like I'm going to give you a finite choices that you can do that will help model the behavior that we're looking for, but I need you to make a choice. So that I think is where it comes into place. So it has to be authentic. They know I'm not coming at you on some harsh consequence stuff. I'm not. Like the consequence is honestly natural as yours. But when you have a smaller baby falling out in the hallway, it might look a little different. Like I'm gonna love on you for a second. I'm gonna get down on the floor with you. We're gonna breathe. We're gonna try to get to a place that we're regulated, and then we're gonna move on.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that rapport, I think it goes back to a soft skill, right? I think we spend so much time, and this could be another topic of conversation, on professional development or things in the summer, that are needed as far as curriculum and getting ready and just everything for the school year. But the biggest soft skill that I don't think enough time is spent on in the summer or kind of coming back or onboarding is just how to build rapport with kids, like how to build a relationship with your classroom while maintaining like routines and expectations, right? Because a lot of times I hear that from parents too. It's like you either got to be harsh and you're the person that's, like super just rigid and no fun or no anything or no relationship, where you got to be the opposite, where you're like super fun but you're passive and you don't follow through. What is it? The gentle parenting. Like I think a lot of people miss the point in gentle parenting. I think people feel like, oh, gentle parenting is like no consequences, we just best friends and we like twirling around and having a good time. Like no, gentle parenting is still, you're still parenting. There's still rules and expectations. There's still consequences. And, for the wanted behaviors and for unwanted behaviors. And I am spending more time catering to your emotions too, and really figuring out, like, developing your coping strategies, and having conversations with you, and, you know,
Yeah.
being gentle in that manner as well. And I think we missed that.
Yeah. I hear that. I love that too. I think I think when you think about it, like from just a bigger picture, some of this is a reset for so many of us.
Mhm.
And I think what we also tend to forget is we do all these end of year celebrations and parties, but it's also missing this lens of termination. And for folks that don't know what that is, it's a term that we use in social work where you're ending a relationship. And you do so in a way where you can like close the chapter, close the door in a way. And we do that very often in schools and education settings in a celebratory manner. But sometimes it also can feel like students are just closing the door without kind of like honoring the experience and kind of like where folks have been or come through during this time and duration with you, which is also kind of a hard setup for the next year, right? So we think about what's the research, the first 6 weeks, responsive classroom, right? That, you know, you got to build into a new school year. Those first 6 weeks is where you set the routines, the behaviors, the expectations for the year. You have to do the same at the end of the year. You have to close them out. This is what we learned. This is how we've grown. And this is what's preparing you for this next stage, this next phase. And so it's great to be celebratory. Field days, field trips, stepping up ceremonies. It's fabulous, but it needs to be intentional. And so
Yeah.
we need to make sure that that skill building is still included in that.
Yep. No, I agree for sure. I know we have about 14 minutes left. That question did get me. Where is the question that I just saw that I'm like, ooh, this is a good one? Oh, this one. Are we expecting kids to handle emotions better than the adults around them?
That's a good one.
Right. I think that might not even be a question. That might just be a statement too. Like, I do because I do. I think sometimes we expect kids to manage better, like we have these expectations for kids on how they should react, but the adults ain't doing it. We're not doing it. And I think that's another issue, is that we just don't have the support sometimes for the adults either. Which is, I think, a whole nother thing in schools, is that there is no emotional support system or regulation systems available for adults in schools or in work environments.
Yeah.
But we do a lot of times what I'm expecting my kid to do. I'm like, dang, if somebody told me this myself, how would I feel about that? Like, I'm holding him to a higher expectation
Yep.
as a 5-year-old that I'm not, I wouldn't hold myself to as a 39-year-old. So like,
We created a culture in schools of don't take your sick days, don't take your PTO, be here. It's so hard to get sub coverage. You know, kids lose so much when you're not, the ready person. Subs are great. Don't hear me out. Subs are fantastic. You need them. But kids feel like it's a free day or the learning doesn't continue, and that pushes the academic achievement goals back or stalls them.
yeah.
Let me tell you, you know what also stalls them? Dysregulated teachers, dysregulated or burnt out student support and administrators. He's tired. And the behaviors are nonstop. And it's not because they're bad kids, it's just because they're overstimulated all of the time. And then you ask them to come and sit in the classroom and do learning in a way that just isn't conducive to the world that our young people live in anymore. And so you see so many communities now, and you have programs like Montessori or expeditionary learning. And those are just some of the popular ones, right? Like there's other models. There's now virtual schools, right? Like people are really leaning into micro schools and homeschools, just learning outside of the traditional framework, right? And I'm here for it. I'm going to be honest, like I'm literally here for it because I think it that's the applied learning. I wanted to say real world, but I hate that phrase for a different reason. But it's the applied learning that kids need to engage and operate outside in the community, in the social situations we started talking about in the beginning. Like, I know how to go to a grocery store. I know how to check in at my doctor's appointment. Um, I am learning a new skill. I was just talking to a parent, a homeschool parent, about archery just recently. And I was like, oh, I used to do that in camp. I was like, oh, wow, like that's a really cool skill, something to learn.
Super dope.
It's just like, how do you create these spaces and opportunities for students to regulate themselves and try new things? But you're asking teachers to be stagnant and still and be rote, kind of like in what they're doing. And then when they need a break and they're burnt out because the behaviors just aren't matching, we penalize them for, not taking a break or taking the PTO. Right. And I don't agree with that. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it was the hardest thing as a principal, to be honest, like when a teacher calls out, particularly the morning of, but you get it, right? Like, you give me notice, I can plan for this. But if not, you roll with the punches. You clearly needed a break.
Yeah. And sometimes you don't know what people are going through. Like, right. You have no idea what people are going through.
So those same relationships and knowing the identities of, you can't know your staff personally, all of them, but you need to make a valiant effort to know your team. And when you do that, you can check in on them when you notice they're having a bad day. Do you need an extra break? I'll cover your class. Like, you just have to build that culture where folks are supporting one another, but also holding them accountable. I noticed your last period was a little reckless and you might have needed a break. Can I help you take that right now? Because you're going to have to repair that with the students next time you have them in your class because you lost your cool. Or like, that's just, or remind them of how to take a break when they're losing their cool. Like, I need to call somebody at the front office. Someone's got to go cover for me. And you build that culture among your staff where they just don't let anyone fall flat.
Yeah. Or when you think about it, I think another big thing is we don't, teachers don't really have breaks, I think, is the other thing. Like, you have your break, but I'm trying to plan, eat lunch, call a parent, do a million things at the same time. So it's also like, we don't really create, you have break, but we don't really create the break conditions where teachers can reset and like refill and take that breather, whatever they need in that moment. Because I know even when I worked at schools, when I did have a break, I'm trying to multitask on a million things before I have to get to here. Like, yeah, it's a break, but like, I'm not really shutting off or really getting to just enjoy my lunch while I'm scrolling through social media, or enjoy my lunch while I'm chatting with another coworker about how their weekend was, or just something like that. Because I might be doing my lunch and chatting with a coworker as I'm grading papers, as I'm answering a parent email, as I'm trying to get my packets together for my next class. So that was hard.
That's a tough one. And it's the design of schools right now, right? It's traditional school settings. It's that design. And we have to fix it. That's the truth. We have to fix it. And I know there's a lot of ideas out there. So as long as we're failing forward and not harming kids, like, let's try new things. Like, there's got to be other ways to get this work done and make sure that we're supporting our students so they are able to be great learners in these communities, right? And we're seeing the behaviors that work and that translate into young adult behaviors that are going to work out in social settings and society as a whole, right? Like,
agreed. I can't believe it's almost 11 o'clock. An hour went by super fast. Tell me, do you have anything fun or special coming up with Counselor and Concierge?
Of course I do. So, June calendar's not quite set yet. Got a couple things, a couple fires in the iron, but we are offering the Hidden Leadership Workshop in June. So if anyone is in Massachusetts in particular, Counselor Concierge is approved PDP provider. And so we are offering a June workshop to close out the school year for Hidden Leadership. And so all of my folks in the area, if you're not in the area, that's okay too. Feel free to grab a seat and come to the virtual workshop. It is virtual. But if you are in Massachusetts, you can also earn PDPs for the workshop. So we're offering our Hidden Leadership Workshop. We were talking about our G4 protocol. So if you're familiar with an idea of what a SWOT analysis is, this is our rapid protocol. We call it G4. And we're looking at the gaps, glows, grows, and goals, and it can set you up for next school year. So we are wrapping up the school year with our workshop, and I would love to see all of you there. And if you're hearing this live on or before June 10th, if you use the code Hidden Leadership, no, not Hidden Leadership, if you use the code Hidden 26, HIDDEN 26 by June 10th, you will get the $197 price to join us. So please tap the link and join us on June 18th. We'd love to see you.
Yes, let's
Coach, what's coming up for you?
Well, I have a workshop next week, Tuesday, June 2nd. That is next week already. I think we're in June.
It is.
Crazy. Yeah, I had a double think. I was like, wait, are we there already? But yes, we're there next week on Tuesday. Think like a behavior specialist, build an assessment mindset. So what I'm really trying to get at with this workshop is I think a lot of times what I have seen in schools is that people are like, we need an FBA. Right. And it's like overutilization, which, yes, a lot of times, and there are situations and there are a handful of kiddos who do need those formal FBAs and need a formal behavior plan. However, I think part of the issue is that a lot of educators just don't know how to start informally thinking like a behavior specialist, right? You don't need a formal FBA to really start assessing behavior and recognizing patterns and thinking about supports that you might want to give your kiddos, right? Because there are unwanted behaviors that happen at a tier 1 and a tier 2 level, sometimes a tier 3 level that isn't always tier 3 or like kiddo needs a formal behavior plan. You got to start, kiddo is tapping a pencil. You don't need a formal FBA for that, right? Like really thinking about what is that unwanted behavior? What patterns am I seeing? How can I provide an intervention, it's a solution in my room. So really starting to think about how we can start building that mindset so that instead of being reactive, we can take a step back and be more proactive about that. So on LinkedIn and on YouTube, I will drop the links in the chat so that they will show up in there. And I saw somebody made a comment looking for seeing the full replay and future lives. Thank you. Thank you. Javier Alada, we appreciate you for being here.
Oh, thank you. That's so kind. I love showing it on stage. Shout out. Thank you very much. Thanks for popping in the room.
Yes. And that's it for now. That's all we got.
All right. Well, we're talking when we started that we will have a special guest for episode.
Yes. Please follow us on social. So our special guest that we will be bringing on next time, we will be discussing all things classroom management, classroom management supports, and anything else, who knows how the hour will lead us. Just like always, we tend to just go with the flow, go where the conversation takes us. But we will be focusing on classroom management the next time.
I love that. And I'm super excited about that. to really bridge the connection from student support and leadership to behavior analyst work and what's actually happening when you're thinking about whole school culture community and like the direct service to students, and then how that translates into the classroom. And I think sometimes we're not having that whole conversation together.
Yep.
And it creates silos, and that makes it so difficult to do this work, and it does not have to. So super excited about that. Super excited about that. So it is 11 o'clock on the dot.
It is. Well, we appreciate y'all for being here. We hope that you join us next time. Follow us on LinkedIn, on YouTube. Here.
All of the things. We will be here, and we will post very soon when our next date is. We're going to try to make them as regular as possible, because we love seeing you all. So we might shift the times, do some morning times, do some afternoon, evening times, but we love being here with you all. And thank you so much for joining us.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.